If you're looking for some straight up marketing advice that's super chilled and also a bit of a laugh, then grab yourself a drink and get ready for Marketing and Margaritas, a podcast that makes marketing entertaining. Brought to you by Rebel Nation, direct from regional Queensland.
Hello and welcome to Marketing Margaritas. Today I'm going to be talking about how to make your marketing more accessible and inclusive, because yes, it really does matter. So I kind of hate that saying check your privilege, because I think it actually sounds really bossy and condescending, but it actually is pretty true. I think quite often people, as humans, we tend to have a lot going for us, more than we might realize, but we're quite good at focusing on what we don't have rather than focusing on what we do have. I read a really great article recently from Hellen Keller, which the article wasn't recent, the article is really old, but it's called 3 Days to See, which we'll link in the show notes. For those who haven't heard of her, Hellen Keller was born, I don't know if she was born both blind and deaf, but she is blind and deaf. So no sight, no sound. And, you know, I literally can't even begin to imagine how cut off that would feel. You know, for me, for example, I've worn glasses since I was 4 years old, and I do wonder whether old age Jade is still gonna have her sight fully. But to go through your life like that with, no audio, no visual, it's unfathomable to me. But anyway, in this article, what she talks about is what she would do if she could have her sight for 3 days. And to me, it was just a really powerful reminder, like how could it not be, that every single day I get to see and hear and walk and touch and live, and not everyone gets that. So from a marketing perspective, I think it's super important to make sure we are being inclusive and accessible. The world is made up of so many people, and it doesn't hurt to be cognizant of that, and maybe even be welcoming of it. You know, we keep saying about diversity and stuff and throwing these terms around, and to me they're not buzzwords, man. Like it is that the more diversity you have, the richer of an experience that you can have. Having different people around the table, different people in conversations, different people contributing, you know, from their backgrounds and experience and knowledge bases, just makes your own life better and more richer. It makes for better ideas, it makes for better projects, it makes for a better life. So I don't think that diversity is something that we have to put up with. I think it's something we should be embracing. But again, sorry, I'm not going to try and get on the whole fucking moral high ground here. I really just want to focus on the marketing aspect of it, because this is Marketing Margaritas. So firstly, what does it actually all mean? So inclusive, to me, is about embracing how different we all are and making sure we don't make people feel excluded, because everyone wants to belong and everyone deserves to belong. You know, on some level, we may not even always be realize it, but we do want to belong. And so being inclusive helps people to feel a part of things, and that's really important. Then accessible. So this is about ensuring that all individuals can engage with you, and in this case, your marketing content and materials. Okay, so meaning that everyone can access it, like get to it and understand it as well. So how do we do this on a practical side of things? Let's jump into how to make your marketing more inclusive and accessible for all kinds of people. All right, my top tips. First of all, representation matters. One of the easiest ways to make your marketing material feel like it relates to all different kinds of people is to show all different kinds of people in both the photos that you choose and the wording. So using inclusive language and imagery will resonate with a wider audience. And it doesn't need to happen all in one place either. So it's not like you have to have a social media post showing every single type of person, but it also means that you may want to rethink your social graphics if they only show one type of person over and over again rather than a range of people, okay? Secondly, accessibility practices or accessibility standards sort of thing. So in marketing, this means making sure your content can be read and understood by anyone, including anyone with an audio and or visual impairment. So some examples here are things like using alt text for images. So this is for your website, but also there's social channels that have this baked in too, which is fantastic to see. Including transcripts for your videos, Having captions on your video, that's a big one. Especially also for those of us who really hate having sound turned on your phone. When people have captions on videos, it's pretty much the only way I watch video, and that's even if I watch that. And using clear and legible fonts. So think high contrast colors. So you don't want to have like a dark color on a dark or a light color on a light, because it's too hard to read. And this is especially on web, I find. And fonts, again, that can be read as well. So while something, and I say this to the team as well, not that I mean they don't get it, but it's one of those things I find that, you always need to be on top of, is that while something might look really cool, if I cannot read it, then it's not a good design. And I know this especially just from working with so many designers over the years. Like, I do think our team really do think about it quite a lot, but I know from working with some designers previously where they're just so much more concerned about the aesthetic of something than whether the content was actually legible. And it's just useless. You know what I mean? Like, if you make something pretty, but you don't get any kind of message across, well, that person's not going to do any action for you. So, like, it's just fucking useless. Anyway, off my soapbox. Well, this is kind of like a whole episode being on my soapbox, to be fair. All right, my third point is about engaging with communities. So when you're doing market research or you're looking for feedback, you can engage with diverse communities to understand their needs, their preferences, and their challenges. So for example, if you want to make your website more accessible for people who have a sight impairment, but you're not sure how, ask. And now, while there's like heaps of information and useful tools and stuff online, you can also just engage with people. So seek out these communities and ask them for their feedback. And then, here's the real kicker, incorporate their feedback so that your marketing is on point. Fourthly, I have language and tone. So this might sound a bit rich coming from me, considering my predilection for colourful language, but it is important to be mindful of the language and tone you use in your marketing messages. So this means, avoiding stereotypes, those microaggressions, like that passive-aggressive sort of thing that can come through with people, and exclusionary language. So instead, what we're looking for is inclusivity, empathy, and authenticity. And literally, you can ask my boyfriend just how very much I hate when people make generalizations. Like, all people like this do that. Like, all mothers are blah, blah, all something of this. I really can't stand generalizations. First of all, it's not cool. But also, I think it actually makes the person saying it sound really fucking ignorant. So, yeah, we're definitely thinking about inclusive language there and making everyone feel like they're a part of the conversation. It's not hard. You just have to think a little bit about it. And lastly is accessible platforms. So marketing should always be multi-touch point anyway. It's worth noting though, to ensure that your marketing content is accessible across various platforms and devices, not only good for your marketing, but it's actually good for inclusivity and accessibility as well. So I would never recommend running a TV ad only for a campaign, because that's not a campaign. But it can be a part of a campaign alongside digital ads, a media release, and so on and so forth. So obvious one here too is to optimize your website for accessibility. This is a really big focus of mine this year. Actually, yeah, inclusivity next. Last year I was like, we just up-leveled the crap out of our SEO. That's still really important to me, but this year we are up-leveling the crap out of our accessibility inclusivity, hence this being the podcast topic for today, because I think it's something we should all be making more of an effort to do. And I think too that it might be a bit simpler than we realize, and ticking off some key things will really help to make our marketing something that everyone can engage with. And that's not just more helpful for community, that's also helpful for your business as well. My wrap-up tip for today is that it starts at home, i.e. in the office. Please tell me I'm not the only business owner who calls office home. It's unintentional, but Freudian slip and all. If you want to make sure your marketing is inclusive and accessible to different types of people, then I'd be making sure your business is too. From the people you hire, to how you manage your workload, to how you deliver your services and products, to how people access your workplace. Not being rigid where you don't need to be can open up a lot of opportunity for your business and your team, and can honestly just make life life a lot easier too. So if it's like, well, we do this because this is the way it's always been done, it's like, well, maybe not only is there a better and more efficient way of doing it, but maybe there's also a more accessible, inclusive way of doing those processes and everything as well. So I really hope that you will consider how you can make your marketing more inclusive and accessible. It doesn't have to be a massive overhaul, man. Like, nothing ever has to be a big grand leap. Just starting off with a few small things, a few minor improvements, over months or years, etc. It all adds up. It all makes a difference. Thanks for tuning in, and cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.